call the meeting to order at 12:08. And the agenda for the meeting is to have our superintendent discuss his ideas for 3 different items, and I will turn it over to you, James.
Thank you, sir. In an attempt to honor the committee, you know, I'm starting to feel some pressure that we need to get some movement going on this recovery school, because our timelines are starting to really get compressed and compromised. I believe in our last meeting, we had agreed that Mr. Parker and perhaps even myself would go out and speak to some of the ISDs. I think this was your request, Mr. Summers, kind of poll them a little bit to find out their level of interest in recovery school. I'll turn it over to Parker here in a little bit in a second to kind of talk about what that looks like. But what the concern is right now is we don't have a principal. We haven't started any construction. We haven't started any of the ropes course and building that. And because we haven't had any movement on that, as you remember in January, the board basically said cease and don't proceed with any financial decisions at all in reference to the recovery school. What we're gonna end up looking like is we're not gonna be able to open up in August, which that's a problem, but it creates even a bigger problem. The bigger problem that it creates is that, one, it's not gonna be High Point North anymore. So there's not gonna be any kids in that building come August. 2, I'm gonna be left with the staff with no kids in the building, because the building's not ready to open. And so I'm gonna ultimately have to redelegate that staff out to some campuses, because they can't, you know, get paid for nothing. And so we'll have to shift around campuses and stuff like that with personnel, which is gonna create even another problem. So what I would like to do, and for us to discuss, ultimately no action needs to be taken today, but I want the ability to bring 3 action items to this April board meeting for approval. The first one would be that we can discuss is proceed in interviewing and ultimately hiring a principal for this campus. As you know, we have a vacancy. Mr. O'Quinn has vacated that position, and so it's been vacated for some time. And so, Mr. Parker, how many applicants do we have at this time?
54.
With 54 applicants, and we're rolling into the peak of hiring season for public education. I mean, people are available and they're looking for jobs right now. This is the time of contract renewal and all this, that, and the other's going on. The second thing that I would like to bring to the board for approval is for us to put out an RFI, which was a request for information. And it's my understanding that's the best method to kind of fish out there to find out exactly what the skill sets are of the certified therapeutic therapist would be for our recovery component. And then once we got that information, then we could formulate a better RFP to put out there. And so you're looking at a 2-step process with that. So I would like to bring to the board that, so we can at least get that going, and we can have additional meetings to be able to put an RFP out and get that started. And the final thing is, you know, it's not major construction, but I'd like to bring to the board for approval to build the ropes course behind the building. Prior to the January board meeting, we had already done some work and trying to get quotes and companies that might be able to perform that. And we were quite happy with the quotes that we got. They were far less than what we thought it was gonna cost. It's actually much cheaper than we thought it was gonna cost. I think that at least we can start get that going. And those are some things that would help us even as we try to sell seats. We can do site visits and allow some of these ISDs to see the facility and see it starting to come together. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Parker real quick to talk about the ISDs that you visited and your assessment phase.
The ISDs that I have visited have been Aldine, Klein, and Tomball. The Aldine visit went very well. They are very open to the idea of a recovery high school. One of the comments that assistant superintendent made is that I could make a phone call right now, because I talked about starting with an enrollment of 30 students. And his response was, I can call our principals right now, and we could probably fill it up. Now, again, this is just at the conceptual level. In other words, he's telling me that the need is in Aldine ISD. I'll come back to how we get the students into the school here in a second. Klein ISD, we visited with them earlier this year when we let them know that the board had approved to no longer have the DAEP program. And so they know that we're not gonna have the DAEP program there, but that we are looking at the Recovery High School model, and they were very, very interested in that. Tomball ISD, they're open to the idea. Right now, they feel like they are meeting the needs of their students. However, if a student, and I ask them, if I come across a student that's exiting a treatment program and they're a Tomball ISD student, you know, would you guys be open to discussing how we can educate this student? And they said yes. Spring and Sci-Fair, those meetings are forthcoming. So far, Aldine, Klein, and Tomball like the idea. They don't have students that they have identified for the program, but I'll talk here in a little bit about how we get students into the program without them identifying students.
Well, and before I ask you to talk about the therapeutic component that you met with also, just know that one of our strategies from the onset was to, once we had the approval by the board to start developing the building and we start looking into hiring a therapist, part of the goal was to train high school principals for student identification who might meet the needs for the school. There was going to be a training component of the ISDs that the superintendents I spoke to were very receptive to that. So it could be a collaborative process, and also meeting with their counselors where we might be able to identify a profile, because even these students, when they go to this school, they're going to be interviewed along with their parents. They're just not going to be allowed into the school because of the how we've been informed that we need to be careful that one bad seed can taint the whole building. You have to be very, very careful on who you place in the school, because they have to be ready for recovery. So you also visited the other side.
I visited treatment centers because, again, because of the timeline, I feel like we're running out of time in terms of districts identifying kids going to get treatment, and then ultimately students attending the Recovery High School. That's the one component that Mr. Cover is talking about that we have learned that's very, very important, is that students must have completed some type of treatment program in order to be able to enter the Recovery High School, okay? So, having said that, I met with some of the treatment centers. I met with Synacor. I don't know if you guys have heard of those, that company, but Synacor, they are willing to refer students as they exit that program to the Recovery High School. They want us to be an option for students when they complete those programs. They know that when students leave their program, they are going to, right now, going back to the same environment with the same students, the same situation that got them involved in the drug use from the get-go.
So let's go with, you told us you want to have 30 students, right?
Sure.
Have you really identified exactly how you're going to get these 30
Well,
students?
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
I'm getting to that. And so the Turning Point is another center. They operate 7 facilities in Harris County where they treat students. And another group is called the Phoenix House. And so these 3 treatment centers, I have met with them, and they want us to be an option when students complete their program. So to answer Mr. Evans' question, how do we get students into the Recovery High School? We partner with the treatment centers. They know what treatment they have been providing. The students have completed the program. We are there as an option when they complete their treatment, okay? So the students, the parents, and the treatment center, along with HCDE, understand that we're a viable option for a Recovery High School.
So you got a treatment center Centacor, where's it located?
Centacor, that is located in the southwest section of the county. But they are receiving students from all over the county.
So how many of those students at Centacor are actually come from our part that we service?
Well, that's the part that changes a little bit.
So how many today? Do we know?
We don't have the number, we're just talking
So you really
about
don't know.
concepts yet.
I guess.
Yeah, we don't have numbers yet. My first conversation with them is, are you willing to partner with us and to refer students to us when they exit the program?
So the crux of it is this: when a kid gets out of rehab, their option is to either go to private school, to go to a private recovery school, or to go back to the public school from which they came. Where we're an option is that they can go to the county recovery school versus the public school.
So, but if they're not from a member district, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
If they're not from Aldine or one of the ones that, in the other district's not willing to pay for a seat, then is there going to be a separate fee that will be allowed for somebody to come here?
That can be entertained, but my fear is, and what I actually think is gonna happen, is we're gonna end up having a waiting list for the school because of so few seats. I mean, we're only doing 30 seats right now for 5 school districts with a potential to grow no larger than 100 students 3 years from now.
So how many does it take for this, how many seats does it take for this school to at least, not necessarily make a profit, but at least somewhat break even or come close to it?
Yeah, and so the model that we're replicating, the financial model, is the one from our AB campuses. And so right now, we know that, we had this discussion last time, that the first year we're just doing 30 students and we're gonna grow into that, but ultimately the capacity that we wanna have is 100 students. And at 100 students, you're talking, the seats are gonna be 30 grand with the school districts contributing to 15 to 20 grand of that, which is typical to what our AB campuses look like right now. It's the same model.
Same model, okay.
Yeah, and so there's, I'm glad that you said a key word, Trustee Evans, is that you recognize it's not supposed to be profitable.
No,
It
it's not
defeats the
supposed to.
purpose of what we do as an organization.
So do we
use
have
a
a-
tax rate?
Do you have a certain amount of tax money you're going to play over the next 5 years of your plan?
Yes, Dr. Bethel.
So you will be contributing so many thousands or millions or whatever it happens to
And
be.
that's in the developmental plan.
Right, right, and I know you received a copy of that, I know the other members have not
It'd be $1
received a
million
copy.
a year loss.
But see, I don't like the word loss.
Well, still
But how
a,
is that?
they justify it, but it's still a loss.
So
Negative
it's the
cash flow.
tax contribution. I mean, because it's not, we're not looking at trying to make a profit, so when you say there's a loss, we're not in the business of being
Well,
profitable necessarily.
I remember some vivid discussions of, Choice Partners making a $2.5 million profit, so
But that's
Yeah, but it's
different than
different.
our special.
It's different.
it's, one's a profit, one's a loss, it's still cash flow. If it's
And
justifiable.
one is a self-supporting entity and one's not.
It wasn't self-supporting for many years though.
We're happy it is
It
now.
is now. You know, so we're just,
Y'all wanna bring this on the agenda next month in April?
I want to bring these 3 discussion items to the agenda for approval, so we can move forward.
I think though, to me, if you're gonna, your developmental plan, I mean, if you put together a business plan that says, we need 30 seats, this is how much it's gonna cost, this is what the projected cost of this village is gonna cost, you know, and we can see how much tax has to go into there. So I can read all this and see it all right here.
That's,
So Dr. Meskel, all,
Change.
you know, Chairman Evans is wanting to know
Let me
all
ask-
the
let me
financials.
Sort of clarify that. You've got a 30 student plan in your thing right now? Okay, so, with $20,000 worth of, contribution from the school district and $30,000 estimated cost of operating the school?
Yes, we have, this model, we took a really, conservative look at the cost to the school district. It's anywhere between 10 and 20,000. And so, right now it's built in at 10,000, but has to go, to the school district so they can decide how much they're willing to participate in. Because if they decide that they do not participate at the level, of the AD West or ADEs, then this model would, even be bigger contribution from HCDE.
Well, I mean, that's where I'm going with it, is, would you anticipate even that maybe your fees might be lower to begin with, so that the school districts see that we, see it, and if we can show them that we indeed are helping their students, we are indeed doing something good for the community, you might be able to say, okay, these are where our fees are gonna start, be upfront with it.
Right.
We're gonna start with $10,000, next year we're gonna be at 12 or 13, years down we'll go to.
It will grow over
Right.
time.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You know, that, cause that way you can roll into it, but these people need to know that just cause, you know, he comes in and has a meeting and says, hey, we're great, doesn't mean we're gonna be able to do worth the
Right,
squat.
it's a financial piece as well. Now, the same percentage of, that we had at the High Point North in terms of the HCD contribution, it's roughly the same for the Recovery High School. So we stayed within the parameters so that it was not gonna add more to the contribution.
Well, but, and I guess since we're aware that we have a healthy fund balance, it would not kill us or the community if we actually gave more tax contribution to this to get it off the ground and to have more students if we needed to. So if you go up and say, I've got 30 seats and I have a dire need for 60, you know, would you be able to then, is the building gonna be able to hold 60 students? I have to guess it's gonna build for 100. So you
Right.
could, if we had to,
Right.
we could then authorize more money to then help the students that it says we need. So the potential is there. I mean,
Right.
you know, but I know you can't go in there and say, well, if we're planning for 30, we have a need for 150, you'll shoot yourself in the foot, you got too many people.
Yeah.
This was a very conservative
butt in here a
approach,
little
didn't
bit.
wanna be too
Is that
aggressive.
Let us finish this. Can we just finish first before you let in?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I tried to be as conservative as I could in terms of the student projections, because it really doesn't serve us well if I go very aggressive on
Sure.
the number of students and then have to find out, well, it didn't meet the projection. So, even with the conservative students.
No, I'm just
we
asking
are-
what you did, that's what I'm trying to figure out, make sure you guys
Right.
really looked at all the
Right,
possibilities.
we did.
Right, Mr. Sumner, I'm sorry.
That's right. Why in the world would we want to charge the school districts less money than what we're currently charging them when we're gonna provide additional services over what we currently provide?
They're not going to, that was just a
Yeah, we are,
suggestion.
we are. We're gonna have all of that expense of the medical stuff added on to our school that we don't have now. Our cost will be greater for the recovery school per student.
So there's gonna be fewer HCD staff because we're gonna consult out the therapeutic
Well, you're
component.
still gonna pay for it.
That's obvious, I know that.
Okay,
I mean,
but
but
it
we would
doesn't
pay
matter
for
if it's-
employees
If
too.
it's out or not, it's gonna cost you more to operate the school.
It goes back
per
to the-
student than it would with the existing school, and the reason we're closing down the existing school that has how many students, 30? We're losing $500,000 now.
Okay, but see, so we keep looking at, we've known this from the very beginning, even from the
We
time.
have not
Hold
opposed
on.
this plan.
No, from the
Okay.
time that we presented this, we've always said that we're gonna feed into the school. You're suggesting that we need to open up with 100 students.
No, I'm not.
Well,
No, I'm not.
But my point is, the first year, we're gonna start off with 30 students, even in the presentation that I showed the board. I said we're gonna do 30 students, then we're gonna do 50 students, then we're gonna do
It
70
doesn't
students.
matter, you'll lose more money, you'll have a negative cash
And
flow
so,
that increases
we're-
every year
we're
as your
back
students
to the
increase.
original point that I started with, is we need to stop saying we're gonna lose money as to contribution from the tax rate. It is designed that way to provide benefit to the ISDs. The whole purpose of the whole tax rate is for it to benefit the ISDs, so they don't have to pay costs.
You know-
They pay below cost, it's not a loss.
Okay, let me counter that a little bit. We wouldn't have lost the students that we had if been charging less than what we were
That's not
charging.
true.
Yes, it would, because Spring wouldn't have,
So you're saying,
they wouldn't have left
do
us
you
if we
know
were
why
just giving
Spring
it to them.
canceled the contract, Don? You think they did it because of finances? Is that what you're
Let's put it
saying?
this way, if we were charging less than they could do it for themselves significantly, they would not have gone away.
I would disagree with that.
Well,
Well, I'm just
Because
here
they
to
could-
tell you, we were charging less than they paid for themselves, and they still pulled it. Because it's not always about the money. If they don't think it's a quality program,
So they
they're
don't
gonna
think
pull
we
it.
have a quality program?
We're talking about history though, Mr. Wolf. We're
I
talking
know,
about
but-
the previous
but that's
High Point
accurate.
North.
They didn't
I
think
told
we had
y'all
a
from the
quality.
very beginning, the Spring ISD superintendent was not happy with the High Point North program. So
Well,
he
what
pulled
makes us
the
think
whole
that
thing.
this Recovery High School will be
Because
better?
it's not the same thing.
well, you could have provided the whole more programs if you weren't gonna charge them for it.
Say that again?
In other words, if you had agreed not to charge them anymore and add the programs, then, they probably would still be with us, but we would
No,
just
I disagree
have a
with that.
smaller amount.
I would, I disagree with that. I personally have conversations with the people making the decisions, and those conversations don't look anything like that. I believe you are speculating about how superintendents think and how they go about business, and that's absolutely not how they do it.
Well, I personally talked to the superintendent over Spring ISD, and he was more about he just wanted to bring it in-house and not have it outside. And there were some things that he wasn't exactly happy with under a different superintendent we had here,
Yeah.
right? But then, once he was not happy, and then he started thinking about bringing it in-house, he did decide to bring it in-house. Could we have saved it if we just said, we're gonna give it to you for free? Who knows, we didn't do that.
Well, I know that, but what I'm saying is that our logic of giving this program, which is enhanced from what we currently do, for less money than we currently charge, doesn't seem to make much sense.
Well, I know, one of the things that James said is that we will have less HCDE staff there than we currently have at the High Point campuses, but it'll be offset, some of that cost will be offset, because while there's less staff that we're paying for, so there's reduced cost there, there's more cost because there will be contract therapeutic people there. So the bodies will be there, but it'll be less cost up front for salaries, but the cost will be there. Is that reading correct?
Yeah,
I don't think that's correct, because you still have to teach these kids. You see, you have to have the teachers to teach them, and you have to have the therapeutic.
Yeah, but High Point has to have extra paraprofessionals there to keep the kids who have behavior issues, to keep them under control. Hopefully, we won't be having the behavior issues there, right? Or will we?
well, you won't be on that campus if you
You
don't.
got the worst students.
All the places we visited, if the kids have behavioral problems, they get kicked off the campus, and then someone who's on a waiting list gets that seat. And I mean, there's zero tolerance.
So
Those
they,
are all private places too, though.
No, not all of them.
all right, so anyway,
I think Eric had a
I have
question.
a question. So it's 30 students a year? Is that?
No, we're gonna start off, it's almost like a cohort. We're gonna start off small because we're trying to protect the integrity of the program. Everybody that we've spoken to said, do not open up this school full-blown or you will fail.
So 30 students the first
We're
year?
gonna start off with 30 students, and then we're gonna go to 50 students, and then we're gonna ultimately, our goal is to go to 100 students.
Yes,
And so the revenue it brings in the first year won't look like the revenue it brings in hopefully the third or fourth year when we're at capacity. It's no different than what's happened with our other special schools where there's a waiting list now.
I understand that, but I'm just trying to understand it.
Yeah.
So it's a negative cash flow of $1 million a year for 30 students.
Why do y'all keep
For the
saying
first-
negative?
For the first year, for the first year. For
If
the
it's
first year.
negative, what's wrong with saying negative?
This is not.
Or it's
the
an investment,
contribution of the
Well,
it's
it's
tax
still
rate.
negative.
and it's an investment in the community for 30 students at $30,000 a head for the first year. And then it goes down after that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out the
Go
cost
for
per
it,
student.
Jesus.
If
You mean it doesn't go
look
down?
at page 22 of this report, I'd like
Law
to put a
school's
couple of
over.
things in perspective. This is a chart going back to High Point North in comparison. 2015, we were at full capacity at that time, and we were looking at an investment from the tax at $866,000. And that was before Spring ISD pulled out. 2016, Spring pulled out, and so our investment went up to $955,000 for fiscal year 16. What we're proposing with the 30 students only is to be at 627,000.
Less than we were paying when
Less
it was
than
a
we
high.
were when even spring was there back in
How many
2015.
students are in here?
This was about 30, maybe 30 to 40 students, because spring didn't pull out completely. We had now we're 30, 35,
So
I
how-
think it was a little bit more.
So
than
how
that.
is this gonna be less with
Because
30
we have
students
less
than
staff.
that is?
Because we have less staff.
Well,
Yeah,
We have
because
a
what?
2 million, less staff, look, $2 million in expenditures
You
versus.
still have to teach the people,
Of course.
so you have to have the same number of teachers.
But we don't have, not the number of students that we had in Type 1
You
North
said
at
you
that
had
time.
30 there.
Not a, I mean, look at the
This is
exact
how-
numbers.
30. So it's the same.
No. Yes, sir.
so we're gonna charge these schools $20,000 per student, is that what, or $10,000?
Right now, this plan has it at 10,000.
Okay.
However, we would lean more towards the 20,000 model because AB East and AB West are at 20,000 level. And then, now the school district doesn't get additional money because the child has some additional problems. So the question is, would the school district pay the delta between the 10 and the 20? And so that's what we're going through the
Have you guys
discussions.
looked at the federal grants that pay for some of that?
Maybe the school districts, through their federal grants or through their additional, revenues that they would receive, they'd probably be able to do that.
No, I'm
So
I'm
that's a decision that the school district would have to make.
well, I'm just looking at like, Reach Unlimited uses,
Yes.
they use federal grants to start, their program out in the northwest part of the county. And they use actually money to bring in to help offset some of the costs.
Yeah, but we're,
The question,
get it through the state.
Not Reach that, they have their own.
if you look at page 3, we're going to Mr. Summers' question about how many students were served in 2016. High Point North had 125 students when we were at 855,000. 30 students is in FY17, what we currently have right now. So there is a lower level of commitment from the tax from, for the Recovery High School than when we were even in 2015, when we serviced 200 students at High Point North, and then 125 during fiscal year 16.
The more students you have, the more contribution you have, right?
Absolutely.
So we'll have more invested, it'll be the same amount we're investing in each student when we have more students?
Yeah.
It'll still be about 30, is it?
Now, there'll be some
30,000?
savings from the overhead
Right,
costs.
there'll be I guess a reduction in our, fixed costs, because the more students we get, then that reduces the per student number.
And I imagine our variable costs might go down a little bit too.
A little bit, because of some economies of scale.
You
Well,
only
it's
need
not-
one principal,
I'm sorry?
you only need one principal, regardless how many
Or
students you
system,
have.
for
I
example.
mean, it's not a bad thing for us to be putting the taxpayers' money in that we're collecting. You know, I mean, I know we're talking about it at a loss, but it just means our fees will cover this, and the taxpayer contribution will have to be in that point.
My point is, I mean, obviously, it's not a bad thing in effectively subsidizing this.
Right.
But my understanding is, why would we wanna subsidize this at a cost to the district that's less than our present situation, which requires less effort than what we're gonna put into this? The other thing is, I'm gonna go back to, we still have no real commitment from anybody that we're gonna get any student unless we charge a small amount. And maybe not even then.
And Don, if we're investing $30,000 in each student, I think tons of people or districts will jump at it, because it's basically, from my understanding, like structurally, we're basically investing $30,000.
Now, we're
that would
gonna
all-
charge them 10.
So they're, basically, it's a net gain of them, of each district of 20,000, or even 10,000 per student.
Well, the problem is, Eric, is that they can have those students in one of their classes at basically no cost.
But we're
they
talking,
won't
so,
receive the support.
yeah, we're talking about a service, and so, you know, I think we're at a point where the districts are not gonna say, we're gonna buy 5 or 10 seats when we don't have anything to show them. I mean, we've not made any progress on this. I don't have a principal. We
Well-
have not identified who we're gonna consult with the therapeutic part. I got Jonathan up there trying to go around and paint these lovely, you know, mental images of what this place is gonna look like, but we haven't done anything. And what's gonna happen, and this is my fear, and this is what I really wanna inspire everybody that sits around this table, is so if we keep dragging our feet on this, we're gonna fail at the implementation phase. Most new programs die within the first year because of failure to implement. And we are stutter stepping and failing. We will fail at this. And it's gonna be because we are splitting hairs on every little thing. I know it's ambitious, and I know we're taking a chance. Most good things come from that, you know, and I have a tremendous amount of faith in not only myself, but certainly my team from every facet that we'll be able to pull it off, and I think that the ISDs will be grateful for it. But it's not gonna start off at this full-blown, 100-student, huge recovery high school. It's not gonna start that way. It's gonna start with 30 students.
We're way off the subject of our agenda, but that's, okay. I wanna ask one last
That was a
question.
collaborative effort getting off of the subject. It was my fault. I had a small role to play in that, but you did too, and everyone else.
I have one more question for Mr. Park. When was it Spring that told you that if they could get that many students
That
together
was
or
all
whatever?
Alden.
Alden, excuse me, Alden, yeah. Was the next question you had, do you have the money in the budget to pay for it?
No, I did not ask them that.
Yeah. That's the whole problem.
So you're saying they don't have it?
I don't know if they have it or not. You know, the school
How would you
districts
know?
are complaining that they never have enough money. And so you're going to take they're still gonna get the average daily equivalent or whatever, ADA. And they're gonna pay us, right? What's the ADA, per student?
What is
For
it
a year.
averaging around?
On the average, the state, it's about 10,000. 10,000
Okay.
change.
Depends on what school district.
Depending on the school
So
district.
they could transfer that
It's a
to
couple
us,
versus
but it
some.
was, in effect, right now, would Alden give us 30 students?
We don't want 30
Yeah.
Alden students.
He was just letting me know that that's his way of saying that the need is there.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that you got a classroom that has, and I don't know how they're doing these. I assume a drug recovery student, when he comes back to school, would probably just be put in a regular class.
Everything goes back to his home
Yeah,
school.
so in effect, that one add-on student, as long as they don't have to hire another teacher, because it makes it 26 students instead of 25 or whatever it is. That student goes to that school for free in terms of economic benefit.
Well, I mean, you know,
They
we
get
can
paid,
get
but
all
they
the way
don't
down
have
to the
any
micro
additional
level of
cost.
that. But you're making an assumption that the student actually will go to school.
Well,
You know, typically the students that we're talking about, when they come back to that campus, they're gonna be truant half the time, if not back into
so they
another
won't
alternative
they
setting.
won't have average daily attendance, as high as it would be if they were there full-time, but they still get paid.
They'll end up paying based on the snapshot date, right?
Yeah.
They gotta settle up at the end of the year.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, they still get paid partially.
You know, the original concept of how we even got to the recovery school was because we saw it was a void that wasn't being met. And school districts and superintendents were basically like, we've got a problem that we cannot effectively address it. And their problem isn't big enough to invest $600,000 to it. But brought together in a cooperative, kind of like what we exist as, we can provide that service for many who couldn't do it necessarily for themselves. And so it's the itch that the school districts couldn't scratch, and that's what we're trying to do, is address that issue. And every superintendent I've spoken to has been hyper receptive. As a contingency plan, and I haven't said this openly, I haven't even told Mr. Parker this, but one of the things I have considered, if we had to fall back, we didn't get the initial enrollment we were looking for, I would expand it out to other ISDs. They would just have to drive, because I do have superintendents on the eastern corridor wanting to know when is their school gonna start.
To them originally.
Because I think the school will be over capacity, and we don't wanna kick kids out. You know, if we eventually grow like we should, and then we got kids coming up from Goose Creek, and Alding's like, okay, we got 6 kids waiting, but we got people from all the way Goose Creek and all, you know, Baytown and blah, blah, blah coming over, then that's gonna be another issue. My goal is to have 4 schools.
I would think if we're gonna open one school, every school district should be allowed to vie for those 30 seats.
Well, my goal is to have 4 schools.
Well, that's not what I'm talking about here.
But I will say, Trustee Wolf, that currently when I visit with the treatment centers, I could see us, because again, students are attending the treatment centers from all over the county. And when they have somebody that's ready to lead the program, you know, they're gonna call me and let me know, not just if it's an Aldine student. Right now, because we don't have solid commitments, I'm interested in any kid that's leading the program that may be interested in the Recovery High School.
The only problem with that is that that's school district that they're from may not want to participate.
Correct, we would have to
Uh,
work on that part.
But
Well, but right now, the school districts and the kids don't even know it exists. And the biggest thing that's gonna happen is the parent, it's not the kid, and it's not the superintendent. It's the mom that says, I don't wanna send him back to that high school. He's doing good, he's doing better than he's ever done in his life. And for the assistant soup saying, we have an alternative. We haven't purchased a seat, but I can call to see if we can. And then there's a school, and you're welcome to go out and do a visit. They have an intake process. You have to meet their prerequisites. You're not guaranteed a seat. I mean, that's what could happen. That's how that process is gonna work.
well, we have this, and then I am going to shut this down.
Thank you.
We have a situation right now where the school districts can't even meet their existing special education programs. So it's really not too logical to think that they're not gonna meet their existing obligation for autistic kids that the parents are screaming at them about, and send the kid to a recovery high school instead.
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, there's only so much money, and the reason that they can't meet their special ed needs is because they don't have enough money to do it. And then you're gonna say, autistic parent doesn't get their kid in special ed within the district because they spent the money sending the kid to this recovery high school.
I don't know. I think that issue's more complex than that. And I
It's
would
very
need to know
complex,
exactly
but
what districts you're
I
talking
can tell you right now, all
about.
the pressure is removing that 8.5% cap to get all these students that were not allowed in special ed, to get them into special ed, which is gonna cost even more money, and the state's probably not gonna give them any more money, or very little, if they do. So as I told you before, you need to work on your marketing plan. You need to send them that letter and just get it. Say, thanks for meeting with us, we enjoyed the meeting, under our discussion, you did express some interest in having your students attend this school. Would you be willing to discuss or proceed with the matter further?
I disagree with that. I don't think that needs to happen, and that's not how business typically works in school districts. I
Well,
think,
it's how it works in business.
I know, but we're not, these school districts aren't selling chicken. they're educating kids.
You know,
It's different, there
what
are
you're-
many
what you're doing
parallels
is
to
you're
business
proposing a
and
field of
public
dreams.
education, and then there's not. You're talking about a marketing strategy. We don't market our AB campuses and we have a waiting list.
You are closing down a school.
I
because
just
you
said
didn't
the
market.
AB campuses, and
Okay.
even a school that we're repurposing to a recovery school, which was because one district pulled out, even when given the opportunity for the two districts who currently send kids there, and telling them that this school's no longer gonna exist, you know what their response is can we send them to the other side of town, to your other one?
Yeah.
It's not to cancel it, it's because they value the service and they need it, they don't wanna cancel it. Can we drive them an extra 20 miles to go to the other one? That's how badly they want it. And there wasn't one billboard or commercial that got them to say that. It's because they value the service that is provided. So the business model that you're thinking of does not meet the prerequisite with these schools.
Okay, let's wrap her up here. It's my opinion that you can bring these things up under a contingent plan. But you need to bring this revised plan up for a vote as to whether or not we're gonna proceed or not.
Hold on, stop. What
Before any of
revised
this.
plan? The development plan?
We have not approved you having a recovery campus at this point. in
Oh,
time.
no, I'm asking for clarification. You said this is the revised plan. What are you referring to?
This, we need to know, and I can't imagine why you don't put the number of students on that little, explanation you have there. You want the 30 student?
So you're
50
saying,
student, the 75 student, the 100 student, capped out with a estimate of revenue, expenses, our, cost out of the taxes. So how much is it gonna cost us when we get to our 100 capacity? And if you wanna build 3 more of them, then whatever that cost is gonna be.
so what do you suggest needs approval by the board? I just want
You have to
clarification.
approve us agreeing to proceed with the Recovery High School. We have not done that.
So I may add an additional agenda item. So I'll have an agenda item that approves, for the board to approve the advancement of us moving forward with the
Right.
Recovery High School. So
Exactly.
hold on, Mr. Sumner. So initially, I was under the impression that the board needed to approve every step of the way. What you're saying, the board just needs to do an overall
That's
approval
not
of
what
the
he's
program.
saying.
No,
Well,
that's not what I'm
asking
saying.
for
I'm saying that you
clarification.
can't, the board can't approve any of these until they've approved the project in
Okay.
general.
So the board
You
needs to.
have 4 things on there.
Well, and my memory could be wrong, I thought the board did approve
Nope.
a recovery high
We
school.
did not.
Does anybody else recall?
We did not. We sent it back for this plan that he has.
Well,
right
in
here.
January, what you rescinded is spending money
Right.
on the Recovery High
I
School.
think we approved the Recovery High School, we just stopped us from spending any money until we got a plan, so we could move
Okay, well,
forward.
whatever you wanna call it, we have to approve this plan before you spend money.
Correct.
So you can't have the school if you can't spend.
So the developmental plan needs approval, and then
Yes.
the additional items, the 3
Right.
items would need approval.
Yeah, sir, no
Assuming,
matter how you wanna couch it, we stopped the original plan.
You stopped sending, but the board's, my understanding is that the board directed the superintendent to no longer spend money on,
Until the
until
plan
the
was
board,
approved.
and without board approval.
Yeah.
Right,
Until the plan was approved.
correct.
all right, so we got that straight. And what are you saying that needs to be done to the plan?
Well, I think you need a thing that's gonna say, when we open the school, the first year, if we get 30 students, this is what it's gonna cost us. If we get, as we raise up the number of students, this is what
That's
that's
in
gonna
there
cost.
already. That's already in there. And just clarification, Chair, I know this is a
Yeah.
subcommittee, but does one person speak for the entire subcommittee on what we need to do, or does the subcommittee have a consensus that that's what we need to do? Because right now, we're just doing whatever Mr. Summers tells us
Well,
to
who's
do.
members of this committee?
Ms. Trotman is the only member missing. It's 3 members, Mr. Evans, Ms. Trotman, and Mr. Summers.
Well, let's put it this way, regardless of what I say, at this committee meeting, the board has voted that until that plan is approved, you can't do it.
I agree with that, I'm just saying that I
So
don't
that
know
doesn't
whether
really
I take
matter.
the lead
I
of the
may be the only
committee.
vote, one way or the other.
And I guess my point is, we have a seven-member board, and obviously, we're gonna take in all your suggestions. I just don't, every time we meet, something changes, and I need to know, do we respond to one trustee, or do we respond to the consensus of the committee?
Well, I think we asked Mr. Summer to take the lead because he obviously has the background in accounting. But I think it's just in the very spirit of how we usually do things. We usually do all either vote for consensus. We have a vote here. We'll throw Sarah in the cardiac arrest.
It says discuss.
Yeah, we're not voting.
We're not
I said the
voting.
word.
All in favor?
Well, here's the
You know
thing.
CPR.
Here's the thing.
But I mean, I think we could ask about a consensus, we can do
Yes.
things, and, you know, and at the end of the day, you know, you could put the item on the board to consider if you want to. I mean,
Sure.
one of the things that Mr. Summers has brought up some questions about, I think if you're prepared, he asked about it, Jesus has already indicated some of those things that he was asked about is in that report.
Yeah.
So I think if you put it on the agenda for us to then consider it, we learn not to say discuss anymore, we're gonna consider, right? If we can consider it, then we can bring up anything that,
Well,
is being
actually, I
said.
think we need that action item.
There you go, yeah.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
Well,
In other words,
Yeah. So I think it.
board approval of.
Do a board approval of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's not a bad thing for us to have it with the group to talk about it. Maybe to have Jesus or Mr. Parker to, present, or you go weigh in on it, and let Mr. Sumner, you know, he can lead the discussion, because he's the guy that's been kind of ramrodding this whole thing.
And I would just encourage all those interested to just make sure you read the developmental plan, because some of the questions that you have, Mr. Summers, the answers are actually in the plan.
One more
But
thing,
you,
and then
I'm just saying, but you're telling us to do what's actually already in the plan.
Okay, no.
Just say you're good.
Last time we met,
Say thank you.
just a second. Last time we met, I told you exactly to do exactly what I told you today. To get with these people, try to get some kind of a commitment, send them a letter and ask them if they're interested, and you have rejected that policy, rejected that action. That's fine, you can do that, but don't say that I'm bringing it up again, because I brought it up in more detail last time we met.
I
And
think-
you didn't do it.
Duly noted.
And Don, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if what Don's asking is, you may not get a commitment right now because it's in the planning phase, but you could actually get some letters of interest, or to show that it's not just Mr. Parker coming in and saying, yeah, they love it. It's like, you know, the superintendent says, we have interest, and it's based upon what we're talking about. I think it would help.
Okay.
You know, that would at least alleviate some concerns, you know, before we go out and spend, you know, hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million on doing all these things. You know, I mean, this is no different than.
And that way, they're not doing the flat-out commitment that I want 9 seats.
That's
They're
right,
just saying
we don't,
this is a
because
program.
they're not gonna give it to you.
Yeah, they're
Looking for it.
absolutely
Yeah,
not.
we're ready
That's
to
what I'm
go.
saying.
I'm
They're
just,
not gonna
you
do
know.
that.
Yeah, they're not gonna do that, but they can say, there is a level of interest based upon our
RD
discussion.
is very much interested in
Right.
your recovery high school.
Exactly, and we would be interested in further discussions for seats or whatever. I mean, I think that would go away
Is
to
that what you're
show-
saying, Mr. Sumner?
Yeah. You got-
I speak something.
You know, I brought up the-
Translation.
I brought up the example. Gerald Hines doesn't build the
I
transfer
remember that
tower
example.
without having tenants to go in it.
Well, next time, get Lewis to explain all your stuff.
Okay, well, let's
I understood it when he said it.
make a motion to adjourn, or you wanna talk?
I have a question.
Oh,
There's one other project, I know it's not on the agenda, but I'd like to provide you with a copy
Just a
of our.
handout, that's all it is, is your
Just a handout.
handout.
I think she said
No
you can't
discussion,
do
you
that.
can't discuss, you
Yeah,
can hand
that's
out.
okay.
if
You
you
just
want
hand
to
it out.
I'm just gonna hand out, and I'd like to see if we can have another meeting or to discuss that next.
Since this is a
time.
hosted meeting and we have guests, we can't discuss anything that's not.
Yeah, so hand out your handout.
We didn't have a guest.
No, I was gonna say, it doesn't matter if you have a guest or not.
If it wasn't,
No, just a handout and.
and if as long as we have Sarah here, she keeps us in line anyway.
Hand out.
okay, anybody wanna vote,
Don't talk about
make
it.
a motion to adjourn?
Okay, got it.
Okay, yeah,
We're done.
all right.
I motion, he said yes, we're done.
12:57.